Okay. Start. Brightness. So, students, in the last class, we have discussed few topics like achalasia cardia. Okay. GRD. Okay. GRD, achalasia cardia, and hiatus hernia. What else we discussed in the last class? Achalasia cardia, GRD, hiatus hernia. Okay. Today we'll discuss on the topics Juncker's diverticulum. Juncker's diverticulum, Barrett's esophagus, Juncker's diverticulum, Barrett's esophagus, carcinoma esophagus, and the last one is Bohr-Haber's syndrome. Okay, so we are going to discuss all these four topics: Juncker's diverticulum, Barrett's esophagus, carcinoma esophagus, and Bohr-Haber's syndrome. So, if you clearly listen to this class, you will be able to answer most of the PG entrance bits. This will be based on the PG entrance bits, and I'll tell you where the 4 marks questions will come. Okay. So, what is a diverticulum? So, what is a diverticulum? The diverticulum is the outpouching. It is a protrusion or outpouching of the structure from its normal line, and it contains mucosa, submucosa, serosa, adventitia, and serosa. And if all the four are present, that is mucosa, submucosa, adventitia, and serosa, if all these four is present, it is called as true diverticulum. So the true diverticulum contains all the four, that is mucosa, muscle, serosa, and adventitia. If all are present, it is called as true diverticulum. If mucosa and submucosa are present in this outpouching, it is called as false diverticulum, contains only mucosa and submucosa. So this diverticulum are of two types. One is pulsion diverticulum and second one is fractional diverticulum. Second one is fractional diverticulum. So what is pulsion diverticulum? Pulsion diverticulum, P for P, pressure. So whenever there is a weakness, whenever there is a weakness in the esophagus, the increased intraluminal pressure will cause outpouching of the esophagus. This is called as pulsion due to pressure. Then what is tractional? Tractional is if anything pulls it. Example, if there is any tuberculosis surrounding this esophagus, like TB lymph nodes. If any TB lymph nodes, this is the esophagus, and if any TB lymphadenitis, this lymphadenitis will cause fibrous adhesions. This fibrous adhesions will pull the esophagus laterally. This is called as tractional diverticulum. Okay, so there are two types of diverticulum: pulsion diverticulum and tractional diverticulum. Pulsion diverticulum is due to increased intraluminal pressure. Because of this increased intraluminal pressure, there will be outpouching of the esophagus. Where there is weakness in the esophagus, there will be outpouching. This is called as pulsion diverticulum. In tractional diverticulum, it is because of lymphadenitis. The lymphadenitis in tuberculosis or histoplasmosis, they cause fibrous adhesions which pull the esophagus laterally. This is called as tractional diverticulum. So when we come to esophagus, there are three types of diverticulums. This is the esophagus. If it is from upper 1/3, it is called as Juncker's diverticulum. And if it is from the middle 1/3, it is called as mid-esophageal. And if it is lower 1/3, it is called as epiphrenic. That means just above the diaphragm. So if it is from the upper one third, it is called as juncus diaphragm. If it is middle one third, it is called as mid esophageal. And if it is lower one third, it is called as epiphrenic. So out of three, which is a true diverticulum? Can anybody answer out of these three, juncus diverticulum, mid esophageal and epiphrenic, which is a true diverticulum? Can anybody answer? Okay. No, juncus is false. It is mid esophageal. In mid esophageal diverticulum, here in the middle of the esophagus, we have lymph nodes, mediastinal lymph nodes. Okay. So these are, sorry, not mediastinal, these are the hilar lymph nodes, hilar lymph nodes. So in tuberculosis, we know that in tuberculosis there is hilar lymphadenitis, and in histoplasmosis also there is hilar lymphadenitis in middle of the esophagus. So because of this lymphadenitis, there is a fibrous adhesions to the esophagus, which causes pulsion, which causes fractional diverticulum, So the middle esophageal diverticula, mid-esophageal diverticula is the only true diverticula, and it is the tractional diverticula. Whereas the juncus diverticulum and epiphrenic diverticulum, they both are false diverticula. They are pulsion diverticula. They are false diverticula and pulsion diverticula. So they'll ask the question, which of the following is a true diverticulum? The question answer on the options will be juncus diverticulum, mid-esophageal diverticulum, epiphrenic diverticulum. The answer is, which is the true diverticulum among these three? It is mid-esophageal diverticulum. It is a true diverticulum. And the last question, among these three, juncus diverticulum, mid-esophageal diverticulum, and epiphrenic diverticulum, which is the tractional diverticulum? That is, mid-esophageal is a tractional diverticulum, mid-esophageal is a true diverticulum, whereas juncus diverticulum and epiphrenic diverticulum, they are false diverticulum and they are pulsion diverticulum. Okay, so now we'll discuss about the juncus diverticulum. So we'll discuss about the juncus diverticulum, which will be asked as a 2 marks question. Juncus diverticulum, which will be asked as a 2 marks or 4 marks question. So what is a juncus diverticulum? Is it a true diverticulum or a false diverticulum? It is a false diverticulum. Is it a tractional diverticulum or pulsion diverticulum? It is a pulsion diverticulum. Okay. So from where does this juncus diverticulum arise? See, this is the inferior constrictor muscles. What are the parts of inferior constrictor muscles? It has 2 parts. Inferior constrictor muscle has 2 parts. What are the 2 parts? Can anybody say? What is this? These are the thyropharynges. What is this? This is the cricopharynges. So thyropharynges and cricopharynges forms a defect in the posterior part of the esophagus. This defect is called as, what is the defect? It is called as Killian's dehiscence. So what is Killian's dehiscence? What is Killian's dehiscence? The Killian's dehiscence is a space, it is a weakness in the posterior part of the esophagus between the thyropharynges and the cricopharynges. This is called as Killian's dehiscence. Then what is Killian's polyp? What do you mean by Killian's polyp? What is Killian's polyp? Can anybody say in ENT what is Killian's polyp? This is called as Killian's dehiscence in juncus diverticulum. Can anybody say what is Killian's polyp? Killian's polyp is excellent. Killian's polyp is antracoinal polyp. Then what instrument name? One instrument which starts with Killian's. What is the instrument which starts with the name Killian's? Nose or throat? It is Killian's self-retaining speculum, nasal speculum. So Killian's self-retaining nasal speculum. So Killian's dehiscence is for juncus diverticulum. Killian's polyp is for AC polyp, and Killian's instrument is Killian's self-retaining nasal gorge or self-retaining nasal speculum. So remember all these 3 points where there is a word called as Killian's. Okay. So Killian's dehiscence is a false diverticulum. sorry, Juncus diverticulum is a false diverticulum. It is a Pulsion diverticulum. It arises from the Killian's dehiscence. So what are the symptoms? So this is the Killian's dehiscence. What all the food you will take, the food get lodged in this pouch. This is the Juncus diverticulum in the esophagus. The food will get accumulated. So what the patient will complain of? The patient will complain of dysphagia because he cannot swallow this food. This food is getting accumulated in the Juncus diverticulum. And the second thing is, whenever the food gets accumulated, it creates a bad smell, bad breath. This bad breath is named, this bad smell is called as halitosis. Halitosis. The bad smell is called as halitosis. The patient will have dysphagia. The patient will have halitosis. Okay. And when the patient sleeps, what will happen? All this food, whenever the patient sleeps, all this food will get regurgitation. This food will get regurgitation, and the food will enter into the trachea. So the patient will have aspiration. So in Juncus diverticulum, the features are the food will get accumulated in the pouch. It causes dysphagia. It causes halitosis. And when the patient reclines, this food get regurgitated into the oral cavity, and it causes regurgitation into the larynx, and it causes lung abscess. So the question is, what is the most common cause of death in Juncus diverticulum? The most common cause of death in Juncus diverticulum is lung abscess. Lung abscess. So, what is the investigation of choice for Juncus diverticulum? The investigation of choice for Juncus diverticulum is barium swallow. Barium swallow. And the treatment of choice is Dollmann's operation. Dollmann's operation. What is Dollmann's operation? Dollmann operation. So what is Dollmann's procedure or Dollmann? Please write the name, Dollmann's operation. So this is the Juncus diverticulum. This is the Juncus diverticulum. I'll pass a stapler. This is the staple. I'll pass the stapler and I'll cut the septum, which is present between the esophagus and the Juncus diverticulum, and will convert it into a common passage. See this image. The image first I have drawn is like this. I have cut this septum and have converted it into a common tunnel. So cutting of the septum by using a stapler, it is called as stapled operation. It is called as Dollmann's procedure. So Dollmann's procedure is a treatment of choice for Juncus diverticulum. So what are the important points in the Juncus diverticulum? The Juncus diverticulum is a false diverticulum. The Juncus diverticulum is a Pulsion diverticulum. The Juncus diverticulum arises from the space between thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus, which is called as what is the space that present between the thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus is called as Killian's dehiscence. So through the Killian's dehiscence, there is an outpouching of the esophagus. And what are clinical features? Easy to remember. The clinical features is the food gets lodged in the diverticulum. So the patient will have dysphagia. The patient will have bad smell because of the food lodgement in the diverticulum. And whenever the patient sleeps, this food which is present in the diverticulum will come outside, regurgitation, and it causes aspiration pneumonia. And the most common cause of death in Juncus diverticulum is aspiration pneumonia or lung abscess. Lung abscess. And the cause of death is lung abscess. And the surgery to remove this Juncus diverticulum is Dollmann's operation. Dollmann's operation. Okay. Next, we'll talk about carcinoma esophagus. Very, very important topic. They may ask as essay. Okay. So, what is the most common type of carcinoma esophagus? Can anybody? What is the most common type of carcinoma esophagus? Can anybody? Last time we discussed. Wrong. It is squamous cell carcinoma. So previously I have said there is a problem called as Barrett's esophagus. What is Barrett's esophagus? In GERD, due to continuous regurgitation of the gastric acid from the stomach into the esophagus causes metaplasia of squamous cell to columnar cell. So there is a metaplasia from the squamous cells to columnar cells in the lower one-third of the esophagus. This regurgitation is called as Barrett's esophagus. So lower one-third of whole of the esophagus, normally the whole of the esophagus is made up of squamous cells. But why there is columnar epithelium in GERD patient? It is because of the regurgitation of the stomach contents, regurgitation of the acid from the stomach into the esophagus, lower one-third of the esophagus, causing conversion of the squamous cells into the columnar epithelium. This is called as metaplasia. This is called as Barrett's esophagus. Barrett's esophagus. So what is the investigation of choice for Barrett's esophagus? Can anybody? Investigation of choice for Barrett's esophagus. It is upper GI endoscopy plus biopsy. Why biopsy? We want to suspect whether it is metaplasia or whether it is dysplasia or whether it is malignancy. So the investigation of choice is upper GI endoscopy with biopsy. So I'll ask you one question. You have completed the pathology. So in Barrett's esophagus, what type of epithelium can you expect? Is it intestinal what type of metaplasia? Is it intestinal metaplasia? Is it gastric metaplasia or it is colonic metaplasia? What metaplasia you can expect? Is it gastric or intestinal metaplasia? It is intestinal metaplasia. How can you confirm it whether it is gastric or intestinal metaplasia? Whenever you do biopsy, upper GI endoscopy with biopsy, you are able to see columnar epithelial cells with goblet cells. So columnar epithelium with goblet cells will give a hint that it is intestinal metaplasia. So they'll ask the question, the gastric, the Barrett's esophagus is which type of metaplasia? Is it gastric metaplasia or it is intestinal metaplasia or none of the above or one of the or both or none of the above? The answer is in the Barrett's esophagus there is intestinal metaplasia because there are presence of columnar epithelium along with goblet cells. So the most common type of carcinoma esophagus is squamous cell carcinoma. So where is it located? Where is the squamous cell carcinoma located? Upper one-third, middle one-third, lower one-third. Guess, wild guess. Squamous cell carcinoma, upper one-third, middle one-third, lower one-third. No, it is middle one-third. Middle one-third. So high socioeconomic group or low socioeconomic group? I'll give you one hint. Whenever there is squamous cell carcinoma in the body, it is most common in low socio-economic group. Low socio-economic group. Because due to poor hygiene and the patient will be associated with human papillomavirus. Whereas adenocarcinoma is seen in high socio-economic class. So high socio-economic class due to obesity. So in USA, if you see in the movies, we'll see the people entering into the theaters or entering into the shopping mall with big size Pepsis and thumbs up. Here we'll take thumbs up in one bottle, but in other countries they'll take thumbs up and Pepsi in large tins and cans, and they'll be drinking daily Pepsi and thumbs up. So this Pepsi and thumbs up, which are beverages, will cause, I already said, peppermint, coffee, tea, Pepsi, everything will cause gastroesophageal reflux disease. So this gastroesophageal reflux disease will cause which type of malignancy? It will cause adenocarcinoma, which is present in the lower one-third of the esophagus. So lower one-third of the esophagus is due to GERD. It is because of adenocarcinoma. We'll see in Western countries because of this thumbs up and Pepsi, which are the beverages, or because of coffee. We'll take coffee in a cup. But in other countries, they'll take coffee in mug-size mug. Whole mug, they'll take cold coffee or hot coffee. But in our country, we'll take only small cup of coffee. So we are protected against the adenocarcinoma. Whereas in Western countries, they'll take big jars of thumbs up, Pepsi, and coffee. So because of that, they are getting adenocarcinoma in lower one-third of the esophagus. So if they ask, what is the most common malignancy worldwide? Most common site of carcinoma esophagus worldwide, most common site. Middle one-third. What is the most common site of carcinoma esophagus in Western countries or developed countries? It is lower one-third of the esophagus because of GRD, because of smoking, because of alcohol, because of Pepsi, thumbs up, everything. There is gastroesophageal reflux disease. And this adenocarcinoma is seen in high socioeconomic group, whereas in the middle one-third, squamous cell carcinoma we'll see in low socioeconomic group. Okay. So what are the risk factors for carcinoma esophagus? So in adenocarcinoma, already we have told. In adenocarcinoma, it is because of GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and it is because of Barrett's esophagus, and it is because of scleroderma. So only one point you can remember is scleroderma. Why? In scleroderma, there is fibrosis. In scleroderma, why I'm saying in scleroderma there is Barrett's esophagus. In scleroderma, this is, I'm telling about the scleroderma. In scleroderma, lower one-third of the esophagus, the smooth muscle will undergo fibrosis. So in scleroderma, the lower one-third of the esophagus, the smooth muscle will undergo fibrosis. Because of the fibrosis, there is loss of consistency of the sphincter. The sphincter won't be, the sphincter won't close tightly because of the fibrosis of the lower one-third of the esophagus. Because of incompetent sphincter in scleroderma, there is reflux of the acid in the scleroderma causing GERD, causing columnar metaplasia, causing adenocarcinoma. So adenocarcinoma, the cause of adenocarcinoma is GERD, Barrett's esophagus, and scleroderma. So what are the causes of squamous cell carcinoma? The cause of squamous cell carcinoma is S for S: smoking, alcohol, Plummer-Wilson syndrome. What is Plummer-Wilson syndrome? The what is the Plummer-Wilson syndrome? In Plummer-Wilson syndrome, there is iron deficiency anemia, koilonychia, and post-cricoid web. So what is Plummer-Wilson syndrome? The Plummer-Wilson syndrome contains iron deficiency anemia, koilonychia for the fingers, and the patient will have post-cricoid web. This post-cricoid web will cause dysphagia. So this is the Plummer-Wilson syndrome. And what else for squamous cell carcinoma? Juncker's diverticulum. And what are the causes? Palmaris plantaris. So Tyloris palmaris plantaris. Tyloris palmaris plantaris. Tyloris palmaris plantaris and human papillomavirus. So what are the causes of carcinoma esophagus? The carcinoma esophagus causes of smoking, alcohol, PB syndrome, Juncker's diverticulum, Tyloris palmaris plantaris, human papillomavirus. Then what is the cause of adenocarcinoma? Only 3 reasons. They are GERD, Barrett's esophagus, and scleroderma. So they'll ask the question, all of the following are the causes of adenocarcinoma except GERD, Barrett's esophagus, scleroderma, human papillomavirus. What is the answer? All are the causes of adenocarcinoma except GERD, Barrett's esophagus, scleroderma, human papillomavirus, which causes squamous cell carcinoma. All are causes of squamous cell carcinoma except smoking, alcohol, human papillomavirus, GERD. All are causes of squamous cell carcinoma except Tyloris palmaris plantaris, PV syndrome, Juncker's diverticulum, scleroderma. All are causes of squamous cell carcinoma except Tyloris palmaris plantaris. Answer is scleroderma. So they'll confuse you like this in the PG and bits by asking exclusion based on these options and asking exclusion based on these features. Okay. So when we come to carcinoma esophagus, so what is the most common symptom? Most common symptom is dysphagia. Is it for solids or liquids? Is it solids or for liquids? First for what? No, it is for solids. See one mechanism. This is the malignancy. This is the food you are taking. This is the water you are drinking. So which will get obstructed easily, food or water in carcinoma esophagus. This is the carcinoma, this is the malignancy. This is the food, this is the water. Which will get obstructed, food or water? Food, solid food. So in carcinoma esophagus, there will be dysphagia for solids, whereas liquids easily slip from the remaining space. So it is solids compared to liquids in carcinoma esophagus. Yes or no? So what is the first investigation you will do in carcinoma esophagus? You will do barium swallow. In barium swallow, what you see? What is this sign called as? Apple core sign. What is apple core sign? Whenever you eat apple, you will eat apple like this, so that the center part will become like this. Yes or no? So this apple core sign in barium meal, up to stomach it is barium meal, tells about what? Carcinoma esophagus. If apple core sign in the colon, in barium, what will say? Barium meal, or what will use the word? If it comes to colon, any word? Excellent. It is barium enema. So apple core sign in barium enema tells about what? Carcinoma colon. So students, if it is apple core sign in barium meal, it tells about carcinoma esophagus. If it is apple core sign in barium enema, it tells about the carcinoma colon. So apple core sign in barium meal tells about what? Carcinoma esophagus. Apple core sign in barium enema tells about what? Carcinoma colon. So this is the first investigation. So then what is the investigation of choice? So investigation of choice for Barrett's esophagus, investigation of choice for carcinoma esophagus, it is nothing but upper GI endoscopy with the biopsy. So investigation of choice for diagnosis of Barrett's esophagus and carcinoma esophagus is upper GI endoscopy with biopsy. Then what is the investigation of choice for staging? Endoscopic ultrasound. So what is the investigation of choice for staging in carcinoma esophagus and carcinoma stomach? Investigation of choice for staging. It is endoscopic ultrasound. So you have to remember all these are questions. So what is investigation of choice for diagnosis? Investigation of choice for diagnosis. Diagnosis తెలుసుకోవడం కొరకు యూజ్ చేసే మెథడ్ ఏంటి? అప్పర్ జే ఎండోస్కోపీ విత్ బయాప్సీ. What is the investigation of choice for staging? T1. So what is the investigation of choice for staging carcinoma esophagus or stomach? For staging, the only one method is endoscopic ultrasound. The endoscopic ultrasound tells about the depth of invasion of the tumor, whether the tumor is invading the mucosa, submucosa, muzzle layer. So for finding out the staging, T1, T2, T3 staging, the investigation what you use is endoscopic ultrasound. But the investigation of choice for diagnosis for carcinoma esophagus is upper GI endoscopy with biopsy. But the first investigation is barium meal. So there are three questions. First investigation, barium meal. What you will see? What you will see in barium meal? What you will see in barium meal? Apple core sign. So what is the investigation of choice for diagnosis? Diagnosis చేయాలంటే ఏం చేయాలి? We have to remove the piece. We have to remove the tissue from the esophagus. So the investigation of choice for diagnosis is upper GI endoscopy with the biopsy. Good, everybody are following. Then what is the investigation of choice for staging? That means you have to see what is the depth of invasion of the tumor, whether the tumor is invading the mucosa, submucosa, or whether it is invading the muscle. Endoscopic ultrasound. So endoscopic ultrasound is also used for staging in both carcinoma esophagus and carcinoma stomach. Then what is the investigation of choice for finding out distant spread, distant metastasis? It is PET scan. So we have 4 questions. First investigation is barium meal, apple core sign. Investigation of choice for diagnosis upper GI endoscopy with biopsy. Investigation of choice for staging is ultrasounds, endoscopic ultrasound. Investigation of choice for distant metastasis is PET, PET, PET scan, PET, not CT scan, PET scan. If there is PET scan is not available, you can go for CT scan, CECT. Now we'll come for staging. We'll come for staging. See, I'll give you few hints so that it makes you easy when you come to final year also. See, from esophagus up to rectum, the staging is common. That is what staging? Depth of penetration. Depth of penetration of the tumor. So from esophagus till rectum, the staging is same, but only the difference is with carcinoma gallbladder. I'll explain you how is the difference. Carcinoma gallbladder, the staging will differ. So whatever the staging you will write for esophagus, that staging you can also write for rectum. That staging you can also write for colon. That staging you can also write for stomach. Yes or no? Except carcinoma gallbladder, which is a slight difference is there. I'll tell you what's the difference. And one thing, in all GI malignancies, we will remove 5 centimeter margin, except 2. That is, in esophagus, we will remove 10 centimeter margin. And in rectum, we will remove 2 centimeter margin. So in all GI malignancies, from esophagus to rectum, we will remove 5 centimeter margin, extra margin. But in esophagus, we will remove 10 centimeter margin. 10 centimeter margin, and in rectum, we will remove 2 centimeter margin. So rectum means if you want to go to bathroom, we'll say 2 like this. That means 2 centimeter margin. Yes or no? In childhood, we have to say like this. So rectum 2 centimeter margin. Whereas in esophagus, we'll go for 10 centimeter margin. 10 centimeter margin. Okay. So in rectum 2 centimeter margin, esophagus 10 centimeter margin, and rest all GI malignancies will do 5 centimeter margin. So we'll come for staging. What I said, this staging is common for CA colon, CA stomach, CA rectum, CA esophagus. For all this, the staging is common. So what is T1? T1 is involvement of mucosa, submucosa, and involvement of lamina propria. Whereas T2 is involvement of muscle. So when they ask the question, carcinoma esophagus, there is invasion of the muscle. There is invasion of the muscle of the esophagus. The stage is T2. Carcinoma stomach, there is invasion of the muscle. The stage is T2. In carcinoma colon, there is invasion of the muscle. Stage is T2. In carcinoma rectum, there is invasion of the muscle. Stage is T2. Carcinoma gallbladder, the invasion of the muscle. Stage is not T2. The stage is T1B. There is a difference, I'll tell you. Stage is T1B in carcinoma gallbladder, but rest of carcinoma esophagus, carcinoma stomach, carcinoma colon, carcinoma rectum, the invasion of the muscle gives you T2 stage. T3, subserosa or adventitia. Subserosa or adventitia. T4, serosa or visceral peritoneum. Distant metastasis. So T1 is involvement of mucosa, submucosa and lamina propria, whereas T2 is involvement of muscle, whereas T3 is involvement of subserosa or adventitia. Subserosa or adventitia. T4 is serosa or visceral peritoneum. You can write blindly for carcinoma esophagus, carcinoma stomach, carcinoma colon, carcinoma rectum. Everything is this one on the stage. So no need to hard work. Don't need to do hard work for remembering this staging. Just you write all this and add some more features. That is enough for staging. Okay. So in T4A, T4B, what is the extra adding? T4A. In T4B, if it is spread to aorta, it is T4B. In T4A, if it is spread to diaphragm, it is T4A. T4B spreads to the aorta or trachea, it is T4B. That means it is crossing the serosa and visceral peritoneum and it is entering into the other structures. Okay. In esophagus, there is no visceral peritoneum. In esophagus, there is only T4, serosa. In esophagus, there is no visceral peritoneum. It is only in serosa. But when we talk to stomach, you can say serosa or visceral peritoneum. And if you talk about the colon, serosa or visceral peritoneum. But in carcinoma esophagus, you write only serosa. You don't write the visceral peritoneum. So after completion of the staging, we'll go for management. So we'll divide it into upper 1/3, middle 1/3, lower 1/3. So if the tumor is involving the upper 1/3, what you'll do? And if it involves the middle 1/3, what you'll do? If it involves the lower 1/3, what you'll do? If it involves the middle 1/3, you'll go for total esophagectomy. Total esophagectomy. This is the middle 1/3, middle, upper, lower. If it is lower 1/3, you'll go for esophagogastrectomy. That means you will remove esophagus along with upper part of the stomach. So esophagogastrectomy. It is upper 1/3. What you'll do? You will remove pharynx along with esophagus. This is esophagopharyngectomy. Pharyngoesophagectomy. 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 So upper 1/3 you will remove esophagus along with the pharynx, which is above, and middle 1/3 you will do total esophagectomy, and lower 1/3 you will do esophagectomy along with partial gastrectomy. That is upper 1/3 of the stomach. That is esophagogastrectomy. If it is middle 1/3. So what are the names of the surgeries? The names of the surgeries is three surgeries. Three names of the surgeries. That is, first one is Oringer's operation. Oringer's operation. Second one is Ivor Lewis. Third one is McKeown. So what is Oringer's operation? Think that this is a in Oringer's operation, you will give incision in the neck and incision in the abdomen. Incision in the neck and incision in the abdomen. So you are giving two incisions. One incision in the neck and second incision in the abdomen. You are not opening the thorax. You are not opening the thorax. So this helps in removing the cervical upper 1/3 esophagus. So this is called as Oringer's operation. In Oringer's operation, think that this is the abdomen. This is the abdomen. This is the abdomen. This is the abdomen. So you are giving incision in the abdomen and the neck. You are not opening the thorax. This is the Oringer's operation. Then what is Ivor-Lewis operation? You are giving incision on the thorax and the abdomen. This is called as Ivor-Lewis operation. That you are opening the thorax. So you are able to remove the middle 1/3 of the esophagus. So treatment of choice for upper 1/3 of the esophagus malignancy is Oringer's, because you are giving incision in the neck. So you are able to remove the upper 1/3 of the esophagus. But if the carcinoma is in the middle 1/3, or if it is in the mediastinum, then you will go for Ivor-Lewis operation. Ivor-Lewis operation is giving incision on the thorax and the abdomen. Whereas a McKeown is giving incision on the cervix, giving incision on the thorax, and giving incision on the abdomen. So you are removing the cervical part, you are removing the thoracic part, and you are removing the abdomen part of the esophagus. So en-bloc removal of the esophagus, from the thorax, abdomen, and the cervical, it is called as McKeown. McKeown. So among these three, which gives the complete clearance? Answer, which gives the complete clearance? Complete clearance and least recurrence, highest mortality, because you are opening all these three structures, is the third one, McKeown. So McKeown has highest mortality because you are opening the thorax, you are opening the cervix, you are opening the abdomen. So you are opening all the structures, it has the highest mortality, and it has the least recurrence, and it gives the en-bloc removal of the tumor. Among these three, which has the least mortality. That means, see, if you open the thorax, what will happen? You are opening all the structures. You are going to vital structures like heart, lungs, you are opening here. So which has the least mortality? Oringer, where you are opening only the cervix and the abdomen. Ivor-Lewis, you are opening the thorax and the abdomen. Whereas McKeown, you are opening the thorax, abdomen, and cervical. The only operation where you are not opening the thorax, is Oringer's operation. So in Oringer's operation, you are giving incision in the neck and the abdomen. So there is no mediastinitis. If any leak is present in the thoracic esophagus after surgery, you will do anastomosis. If there is leak in the mediastinum, it causes mediastinitis and the highest mortality. But here the anastomosis is made, you are removing the cervical part of the esophagus, and the anastomosis is made only in the cervix. So whenever there is leak, that leak is confined only in the cervical region. It does not affect the mediastinum. So least mortality is present in Oringer's. Highest mortality is present in McKeown. And the medium mortality rate is present in Ivor-Lewis, because in Ivor-Lewis and the McKeown, you are opening the thorax. Whereas you are not opening the thorax in Oringer's, where you are giving incision in the cervical and incision in the abdomen. So abdominal incision is common for Oringer, Ivor-Lewis, and the McKeown. But cervical incision is given in the O-rings. Oringer means just circle. Circle is like neck. Yes or no? So Oringer, you will give some circular cervical incision. You are not giving in the thorax. But in Ivor-Lewis, you are giving thorax incision and abdominal incision. So mortality risk is more for Ivor-Lewis and McKeown, whereas the mortality rate is less in Oringer's operation. So what is the chemotherapy regimen for carcinoma esophagus? CEF. What is CEF? Cisplatin, etoposide, 5-fluorouracil. Cisplatin, etoposide, 5-fluorouracil. So students, I think I made it clear regarding the carcinoma esophagus. So what topics we have discussed today? We have discussed the two very, very important topics. They are the diverticula and the carcinoma esophagus. So everybody, did you understand? Any difficulty? Any difficulty in understanding the topics? No difficulty. So I'll ask you the questions. Please answer. Name the esophageal diverticula, which is the only true diverticula. Name the esophageal diverticula, which is the only true diverticula in the esophagus. Mid-esophageal, excellent. Name the esophageal diverticula, which is a tractional diverticula, where whereas the others are pulsion diverticula. Name, yes, the answer is mid-esophageal. Doleman's operation. Doleman's operation is an investigation of choice for. Doleman's operation is an investigation of, Doleman's is a surgery of choice for Juncus diverticulum. Juncus diverticulum. What is the most common site of Juncus diverticulum? Most common site of Juncus diverticulum. What is the dehiscence? It is Killian's dehiscence. Then what is Killian's polyp? Killian's polyp is AC polyp. Then what is Heller's myotomy? Where you will do Heller's myotomy? Heller's myotomy. One esophageal dysmotility will do Heller's myotomy. It is done in Heller's myotomy is the treatment of choice for achalasia cardia. Bird beak appearance is a characteristic feature of achalasia cardia. Excellent. Apple core appearance in barium enema. Apple core appearance in barium enema is a characteristic feature of what colon? Carcinoma colon. Okay. Apple core appearance in barium meal. Barium meal. Apple core appearance. Carcinoma esophagus. Excellent. Okay. So, what are the clinical features? All of the following are clinical features for Juncus diverticulum except dysphagia, halitosis. Okay, dysphagia, halitosis, regurgitation of the fluid, and stridor. Yes, excellent. So, what is the most common cause of death? What is the cause of death in Juncus diverticulum? Lung abscess. Excellent. You are wonderfully answering. Lung abscess. So, one deep question. If it is lung abscess, will it be aerobic lung abscess or anaerobic lung abscess? Aerobic or anaerobic? What will be in the gastric stomach? Anaerobic, not aerobic, anaerobic. So, what bacteria you can expect if it is anaerobic bacteria? Peptostreptococci, not pneumococcal. Pneumococcal is a community acquired pneumonia. It is Peptostreptococci. So, if it is lung abscess because of your Juncus diverticulum, if it is a lung abscess, what is the antibiotic of choice? Can anybody? Antibiotic of choice. If you give the correct answer, you will get gold medal in the final year. What is the antibiotic of choice? If it is lung abscess due to aspiration, what is the antibiotic of choice? It is clindamycin. It is clindamycin. Everything is an important question. Whatever I am saying, everything is an important question. So, what are the risk factors for adenocarcinoma? What are the risk factors for adenocarcinoma of the esophagus? What are the risk factors? GRD. What is the second risk factor? Barrett's esophagus. Scleroderma. Why in scleroderma? Why there is adenocarcinoma in scleroderma? Because in lower one-third of the esophagus, there is fibrosis of the lower one-third of the esophagus, which causes loss of competence of the sphincter incompetence, sphincter fibrosis, which causes GRD, regurgitation. So, in carcinoma esophagus, squamous cell carcinoma, what is the most common site of squamous cell carcinoma? Squamous cell carcinoma, what is the most common site? Middle one-third. Excellent. Middle one-third. So, squamous cell carcinoma is present in which type of economic status? High or low socioeconomic status? It is a low socioeconomic status. Whereas adenocarcinoma is present in high socioeconomic status because of Western countries. They are taking large Pepsis, thumbs up, and cold coffee in a large mug, which will cause GERD, obesity, GERD, which causes regurgitation of the fluid. Okay. So, what is the first investigation? Carcinoma esophagus. What is first investigation? Barium meal. What does it appear? Apple core appearance. What is the investigation of choice for diagnosis? Investigation of choice for diagnosis of carcinoma esophagus and investigation of choice for carcinoma for Barrett's esophagus is same. Investigation of choice for Barrett's esophagus and investigation of choice for carcinoma esophagus, both are same. Excellent. It is upper GI endoscopy with biopsy. Then what is the investigation of choice for staging of carcinoma esophagus? Staging. Staging is different. For seeing the penetration, it is endoscopic ultrasound. Excellent. Then what is the investigation of choice in carcinoma esophagus with the distant spread, distant metastasis? This PET scan. If there is no answer in the PET scan, you'll go for CECT. So what are the treatment choices? If it is upper one third of the esophagus, you'll remove the pharynx along with esophagus. If it is middle one third, total esophagectomy. If it is lower one third, it is esophagectomy with gastrectomy, upper one third, partial gastrectomy. You are removing upper one third of the stomach, that is called as partial gastrectomy. There are three types of surgeries: Macion, Iberlewis, Oringers. Name the surgery in which there is no risk of mediastinitis. There is no opening of the mediastinum. There is no risk of mediastinitis. Oringer's operation. Highest risk of mediastinitis is present in Macion. Highest mortality is seen in Macion. And bulk removal of the tumor, that is total esophagectomy, we can do in Macion. Okay, so staging, T1 mucosa, submucosa, and lamina propria. T2 is muzzle. In all the GATs, T2 invasion is muzzle invasion, except carcinoma gallbladder, in which there is three classification: T1A, T1B, T2. T1A in carcinoma gallbladder is invasion of the mucosa, submucosa, whereas in T1B there is carcinoma. In carcinoma gallbladder T1B, there is involvement of muzzle. So in all GAT tumor, the involvement of muzzle will give rise to T2 stage, except carcinoma gallbladder, where the invasion of the muzzle will give rise to T1B stage, whereas T2 stage in carcinoma gallbladder will go to adventitia or subserosa, whereas muzzle invasion in carcinoma gallbladder will give rise to T1B, whereas muzzle invasion in all GAT malignancy will give rise to T2. So muzzle invasion means T2 in all GAT malignancies, except carcinoma gallbladder, whereas a muzzle invasion will give rise to T1B, not T2. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I hope I have covered most of the things in carcinoma esophagus, and have covered the diverticula, Juncus diverticula, and mid-esophageal diverticula, and epiphrenic diverticula. Juncus diverticula and epiphrenic diverticula are false diverticula. They are the pulsion diverticula, whereas the mid-esophageal diverticula is a true diverticula. It is a tractional diverticula. It is because of traction by the hilar lymphadenitis, which causes fibrosis of the esophagus and puts the esophagus laterally, causing true diverticula, tractional diverticula, mid-esophageal diverticula, whereas the pulsion diverticula is seen in false diverticula is seen in Juncus diverticula and epiphrenic diverticula. So today I have completed the class, which are very, very important topics. And if you have any doubts, please ask me. Any doubts? Open to all. Any doubts, please. So I think you have understood the class, today class. Any problem regarding the class, you can post it. If you feel anything difficult regarding the class, you can post it so I can change my teaching skills. Any difficulty? Any doubts? Any difficulty? Any doubts? See, I have completed nearly 90% of the esophagus. The remaining 10%, 10 to 15% I will complete in the next class. If you can open the book, that is surgery, what book you will take? Surgery book. Pritish Singh. And you do the bits. I'll challenge you, you can do more than 60% of the bits from the Pritish Singh. And when you go for short answers questions, like what is achalasia cardia, what is Barrett's esophagus, what is a carcinoma esophagus, okay, and diverticula, Juncus diverticula, I'll give you 100% assurance that you can write beautifully. If you can see the bits and if you can follow my class, you can answer it in a beautiful way. All the bits and the 4 marks question you can easily answer without any fear. So students, I will advise you, please listen to the class and please write the running notes, whatever I am saying. No need to refer the books. When you go to the house, you can simply go and do the bits and you can simply answer the 4 marks questions by seeing in the Falcon question and answer books. You can easily answer the questions. So if you have any difficulty, please ask me any questions regarding this topic. The remaining topics will complete in the next class. Because of lack of time, I cannot complete this. So I have completed the Barrett's esophagus and I have completed the carcinoma esophagus, Barrett's esophagus, and I have completed the diverticula. In the next class, we will complete the rest of the things, like what is Plummer-Wilson syndrome, what is Bohr-Haver syndrome, Okay, we'll complete in the next class. So any doubts? Can I close it? Can I close the session? Can I close the session? Yes or no? Yes. Thank you. All the best.